2015, thousands of Canadians gathered in Ottawa, in front of Parliament Hill, to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the 1915 Armenian genocide. They used the slogan, "I remember and demand," not only to express the Armenian community's desire to remember the victims of the genocide, but also to demand that the world recognize the events as a genocide. Oh, that's me, by the way. I was 8 years old. I was there, and ever since, I've tried to go about every year. But I've noticed that every time, less and less people attend these rallies. So I think to myself, is that because fewer people care about remembering the tragic yet orchestrated destruction of 1.5 million innocent lives? In our everyday lives, we strive to evolve, to move beyond our wrongdoings and improve upon the persons we once were. No matter how many times biology professors like to say that evolution is random, as humans, we need to look at the mistakes of our past and act accordingly. So in a sense, the past and the future are intertwined because our decisions for the latter are based on the former. Now here's a paradox for you. Can we honestly remember and move on at the same time? Can we remember and demand at the same time? It's a bit confusing because remembrance is about the past, but moving on is about the future. So let me tell you this. I don't think remembrance and commemoration are the same thing. Some people say we go to commemoration rallies and we remember the genocide, but I think there's more to that, right? Because I think that we should take this as a mathematical equation. Commemoration plus action equals remembrance. Because commemoration is just about memory and what to do to preserve that memory. While remembrance should be about the action we can take, the change we can make inspired from that memory. So it's not about clinging to the past. And remembrance is important. Let us indulge in a thought experiment for a while, as Einstein would like to say, and let us forget the mistakes of the past, right? It's gone. And we imagine ourselves going forward at the speed of light, going forward into the future. And we are only looking at what is right in front of us. We can't look back. That would mean, and while I made that sound a bit poetic because we're always going forward and we're going into this future of innovation, we're going toward the light, it's not amazing because we don't have an anchor to control our free fall. So we're just going and going and going, and the future is good, but we aren't taking a step back to look at what came before us. And that means that we are more prone to repeat our mistakes. This is free fall. And without an anchor, you can't control it. Think about the Great Depression. In the 1930s, the US introduced a series of tariffs to mitigate the economic crisis. Sounds familiar? This is what is happening now. And in the 1930s, when the US did introduce those tariffs, it went very wrong, and very wrong indeed, because it did more harm to the economy than good. So we might as well tell our governments to look to the past, because history teaches us great lessons. This is the French Revolution. Actually, it's a period right after the French Revolution called the Reign of Terror. And during the Reign of Terror, in simpler words, the government of France chopped off everyone's heads, just for fun. And if we forget about the Reign of Terror, then we might as well live in a period of corruption and censorship. We might as well reinstate the guillotine as punishment. Why not? If we forget, we might as well do this. So remembrance is important. Remembrance stops us from making these kinds of mistakes again. And I think that in the modern world, when we look at what's happening right now, we look at trade wars, we look at real wars, we look at injustice, these things have happened in the past countless amounts of times. And since we're human, we have the ability to learn, advanced ability to learn, but we aren't learning much, which is odd. So this is Ottawa again. And in the beginning of this talk, I asked you whether people stop caring about the genocide. And some of my friends honestly told me that these rallies don't matter because we're clinging to the past. But as I said, remembrance isn't about clinging to the past. It shouldn't be a weight that pulls us down. It should inspire us to take action. 2 years ago, I was elected student body president of my high school, and we were faced with an existential crisis as a community. A genocide was being repeated in 2023. 2023. 2 years ago. Yes, it was like the 1915 Armenian genocide. It was like that because, again, some people decided to exterminate hundreds of thousands of Armenians. So what we decided to do is not cling to our generational trauma that has been around for 100 years. And we decided to take action as a class and as a school. Some of my friends, this is Artsakh, by the way, this is where it happened. And some of my friends organized a series of fundraisers, such as bake sales, art auctions, and even designed innovative sweaters that I still wear when I come to Marianopolis every day. And I think it's perfect because they took a bad memory of a genocide. It's sad, and it's generational trauma. And it was happening again in the future, and they turned it into something meaningful. They didn't deny it. They didn't sit down in silence and commemorate the lost. They didn't just think about the past. They saw an opportunity for action, and they took it. And I think that's great. And I think that is remembrance. Remembrance isn't just commemoration. It's about the change we can make to better the world, to get inspired from our past. We also wrote a very angry letter, by the way, to our federal representative expressing our heavy discontent, but that's another story. So anyway, what happens if we don't remember? So there's a major player in this mathematical equation that I talked to you about. Commemoration plus action equals remembrance. But denial sets it all to zero. And I put it in red because denial is bloody. Do you know why most genocides happen? It's because we deny other genocides. A famous researcher and humanitarian activist, Dr. Gregory H. Stanton, wrote a famous essay on the 10 stages of genocide. And he wrote this: denial is the 10th stage that always follows genocide. It is among the surest indicators of further genocidal massacres. So if we keep denying, and if we keep not remembering, if we only commemorate and not think about the future, this is going to happen again. And it did happen again. That's the point. 1915, 2023, it happens again. Think about other genocides, the Assyrian genocide, the Cambodian genocide. These are all in the past, right? We should learn from our mistakes, but we didn't. And we didn't take action. Commemoration is not enough to change the world. Commemoration has to be dynamic. We have to remember through action. And no matter how many times we call the 2023 Artsakh genocide an ethnic cleansing or a mass exodus, it was a repeated genocide. Look at this. This is 110 years ago. This is 2 years ago. It's sad, but it's the truth. This is another article about climate change. So what happens if we remember, but things go wrong? So as I said, remembrance is commemoration plus action. The climate crisis is already killing us. What a fun title. No progress. And my personal favorite, the monster among us. It sounds like a video game, right? That there was that video game Among Us. They're trying to make it appealing. And I think what's funny is that when we look to our ancestors, to the people who came before us, we're like, oh, these people knew about climate change and they didn't do anything about it, but they still knew. And what these articles are telling us is that we still know about climate change and we're not doing anything. So in the future, in 30 years from now, our children will be standing here and they're going to say, oh, our parents knew about this and didn't do enough. And they left an even bigger mess for us to clean up. So what do we do about it? We have to act. Because this kind of mentality of remembering but not doing anything actually is destructive. This is self-destructive. So let's come back to this paradox. Can we honestly remember and move on at the same time? I think we can. And it's by putting memory into motion that we can change the course of actions across the world. As I said, remembrance has to be that wind that propels us to a better future. Look at South Africa. After the end of the apartheid, the newly elected Mandela government didn't just lock away the guilty and call it a day. They did more than that. They told stories. They built public justice. And among Nelson Mandela's greatest accomplishments was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. What did they do? Number one, they helped both victims and violators come to terms with their past. And number two, they documented both past and present crimes against humanity. And that is remembrance. They didn't just say, oh, the people who came before us did bad things. They acted upon it. That is what we should be doing. We shouldn't be talking about climate change with those articles and not actually doing anything. When we talk about the Armenian genocide, it's always about the horror, the terror, the lives lost, but it's never about the reparations. It's never about what we can do to make sure that this doesn't happen again. This is the most important thing, reparations. What we can and what we should do to stop these kinds of things from happening again. This is remembrance. So I'm going to end on a little note. If you didn't know, April is Genocide Awareness Month. And it is the month that we celebrate 4 acts of destruction: the Cambodian genocide, the Rwandan genocide, the Armenian genocide, and the Holocaust. But let me tell you something else. A famous Armenian writer and revolutionary, Simon Zavarian, once said that the word without the deed is dead. When he said this, he was talking about action. Because he wrote this when the Armenian community was going through hardship, and everyone was talking about how everything was bad, but they acted. And that is why every year, on April 24, hundreds of thousands of crowds gather into the streets from across the world to say, I remember, and demand. And not just demand recognition, demand justice, demand the right of return, demand the reparations that are needed to make the world a better place. So I guess 8-year-old me knew what he was remembering, but didn't exactly know what he was demanding. And I think that now it's more clear. Remembrance is about the action we can take to make the world a better place. And the past isn't a place where we should be. It's a map that will guide us towards a better future, to a world without injustice, to a world without mistakes that we've already committed in the past. It will guide us to a world of peace. Thank you.